running full speed, but the markets are faster. Quasar Markets Live brings the world's top financial minds to you. Everything you need to know in one place. Learn from elite educators and gain a competitive edge, leveling the playing field for you. Join the conversation. Quasar Markets Live.
You want an investment edge, but all you hear is noise, hype, and half-truths. Every signal is solid information, but only if you can see the bigger picture. This is where the Quasar magic happens. Weather, charts, news, all financial signals funneled into a single dashboard. Data alone isn't enough. Quasar Markets turns it into energy, sharp, clear, precise. Optimize with Quasar Markets today. Your edge when investing.
Good morning, Quasar fam. Howard here, flying solo today. Although I do have Peter Thomas coming in at 9:40 to talk everything metals, gold, platinum, copper, and actually a little bit about the China dollar. So excited to talk to him about what's happening with the Chinese dumping some dollars he's hearing out there on the street. So futures are softer for a third straight session here as the AI trade looks to be catching its breath. We do see 10-year yields have nudged higher. VIX has modestly moved to the upside. If you were listening to, again, Scott Bauer yesterday or me at any day, you buy that protection when you don't need it. I talked about it earlier this week when it was below 15. Now it's 17.32. And we just got jobless claims at 218K, the lowest level since mid-July, which tempers some of the labor is rolling over narrative ahead of Friday's PCE data. As we know, the number one source that the Fed says it uses. Today, we're going to hit on AI, Oracle's jumbo bond, Intel Apple chatter, SAP's EU probe. We'll get a retail check with Costco and Starbucks $1 billion reset, and a policy charge pop in lithium's America. So let's get into it all. Get my banners up here. And as I said, we are seeing a little bit of a modest de-risking from some of those AI Momo plays, more into laggards like energy. Several desks are framing this as a technical positioning, with RSI stretched earlier this week. We've seen some of the bigger names take a little bit of a hit here today or over the last couple of days. Oklo taking a pretty big hit to the downside. ALAB, Credo, CRDO, they're about to run into their 50-day MA. Pretty much anything that's been on a tier is starting to crash down. So we've got to start to ask, is this the is this the start of what Big Beat has called for, a 10 to 20% retrace here across markets? Crypto is definitely starting out that way. They definitely saw a lot of liquidations and still moving to the downside as we got ready to start the show. If we do a sentiment check through the American Association of Independent Investors, we see that investors are 41.7% on the bullish side at a 5-month high. So that actually has me a little worried that no one's listening to what we're saying here or what others are saying, because we're not the only ones saying it. And the bears are at 39.2, 19.1% are still neutral. That's up from the lows, I want to say September 10th of 28% of an bullish outlook. So folks are starting to come around to the idea that maybe it isn't as bad as some people are calling for. But we'll see what we get out of here. From a macro watch, you got to keep your eyes on this jobless claims beat. And then again, tomorrow's PCE service inflation, which is one of the Fed's key inflation metrics. We'll see what we get out of that. Does seem like today's playbook has been a little bit of, AI winners versus hype. We see Barclays just lifted the price target on NVIDIA to 240 here today. Has that, I don't think they were up though. They are down about 1.54% in early market trading. So market doesn't really care what Barclays is saying today. They are still seeing downside here in NVIDIA. And again, on the Mag 7, Apple, the only one that's holding up so far. Barclays did say that NVIDIA is the most attractive on the multi-trillion AI infra outlay over the next 5+ years. And they see deal flow hitting profit and loss and pushing numbers materially higher. Note upside versus near-term pause here. Which one is it? Is this a short-term pause? Are you buyers of NVIDIA or not is the question to keep in mind. Also on everybody's mind today is Oracle, $18 billion bonds. They're doing, it's the second largest of the year. Even a 40-year tranche priced in at 1.37% over the federal fund rates. So again, the debt window is wide open. We'll see if we get what they attract in liquidity to this. On the counter view, Redburn is selling 175 price target, argues that markets are overvaluing the contracted cloud, frames OCI's role in some single tenant mega deals as closer to financier than classic cloud. So definitely seeing both sides being talked about when it comes to Oracle. Another big one here is Intel in early talks with Apple for potential investment. Comes right after NVIDIA's $5 billion stake in U.S. government's 10%. Strategically, it's about anchoring that 14A foundry customers and onshoring momentum. The question is this something you're buying or is this something you're selling here? But we are seeing, some cyclical names get some talk here. On the downside of that, the EU is probing formal antitrust investigation into SAP over non-premium maintenance and support practices, potentially limiting third-party competition. Shares are down about 2% in the pre-market. Legacy support is a cash cow for big software. Regulatory scrutiny could pressure, both terms and money as clients modernize. So this is an interesting one. We talk a lot about these legacy companies and it's how it's hard to break away once you're in them. This would be sort of what we were talking about. So again, SAP down about 2% on that news so far. We are about 20 minutes from the open here. Let's take a quick look through our indices and such. Tick slightly down here, minus 344. You can see we've been negative here since about 7 a.m. Tried to go positive right about 8:30 going into that jobless data, but then has dropped back down. Advanced decline down around 23.55. So, yesterday's pre-market, not nearly as bad as we are seeing today. So definitely seeing a little bit more blood in the streets, as we say. With the NASDAQ set to open up almost down 75 basis points here and continuing to drop to lows this morning. Like I said, market is definitely weak on the pre-market. Doesn't mean it will stay that way, but so far looking like a rather red day across the board. SPY doing a little bit better, down only 0.5 percentage point, and the same with the Dow Jones, down slightly also. This is after, NASDAQ, I believe, no, neither of them made new all-time highs yesterday. So they did not do that, but they are pulling back today. What is not pulling back is nice move up, continued move up by the DXY, the dollar index. We had Stephen Flanagan on yesterday who called for this, and I believe it is about to 98.50, if I'm not mistaken, was his key spot. If it breaks 98.50, he will actually add to his position. It will prove him correct. And you can see it would basically be a breakout above this level. It hasn't broken above since August 4th. So what Mr. Flanagan laid out for us definitely seems to be playing out so far. I mentioned the VIX up about 7% here. Again, on Monday, I was saying buy the VIX down towards below 16, now above 17 here. Gold, as I mentioned earlier, I do have Peter Thomas, very proud to have Peter Thomas from AU Secure, one of the top metal dealers in the business, on here in about 30 minutes, not even 20 minutes or so, to talk about everything going on in the metals market. So those of you that are gold bugs, silver bugs, or if you've been watching us here, copper bugs lately, Mr. Thomas will have the breakdown for us. Gold, though, back up at 37.37 here. Again, didn't quite get to an all-time high again yesterday, but within percentage points of it. Silver 44.50, so big beats 45 call. Looks like it could come to fruition before he even returns from his trip to New York. I mentioned big drop by Bitcoin overnight, down at 111,259, down almost 2%, and quite honestly, down from the highs yesterday of around 114. So pretty big drop there. Same thing with Ethereum, broke below 4,000 for the first time since August 19th. Just tested key support here at that 39.25 area. We'll see if that holds. But again, crypto definitely under pressure here today, without a doubt. If we look at the different indices across the S&P, the only thing looking so far like it might open in the positive is consumer staples. And if we want to look at the biggest gainers and laggards, to be honest with you, there is a lot more laggards than gainers so far today. Leading the laggards would be CarMax. They had a big miss. Came in an EPS of only 64 cents, down about 6.3%. Stock has hit 5 years lows, and management to cut $150 million in costs over the next 18 months. They're seeing used car demand about down 1% year over year, and they do say demand is still choppy there. So that has CarMax down here slated to open up at 46.81. Let's see when the last time they traded at that would have been in February of 2020. So CarMax is definitely under pressure here, without a doubt. ASST, which is Strive, the cryptocurrency treasury company, down about 12% here. And then we see Power Solutions down about 9%. Credo, as I mentioned in the open, down about 7.75% here today. Same thing, ALAB, Astera Labs, down about 7.71. So a lot of the high flyers from the last couple of months definitely pulling back here, and some of them pulling back to, key technical areas like 50-day MAs. On some of these again. Whoa, it just happened on my screen. Credo, what's going on? Pulling back here down at the bottom of the daily linear regression, close to the 50-day MA. And if we look across here, almost all of these names that you see are crypto companies, Bitcoin mining companies, AI names, some of the bigger flyers earlier. Man, it's been a rough week for Qubit, quantum computing. And what I mean there is just What a ride. While we still see higher highs and higher lows the last 3 days, look at those candles. Those are some pretty wide. You can see the ATR, average trading range, up almost at 1.8% here. So looking at the winners so far in the pre-market, as I said, they are not nearly as a robust list, and you only have about 10 names that are actually above 1% up, today, being led by Leonardo, DRS, don't even know who they are, Diginex, Lee Automotive, IBM, again, on that news of maybe early talks of an Apple investment in them. Open Door Finance, which are technologies, rather nice little move back to the upside after seeing a few days of a sell-off there. Hertz up about 1.58% here this morning. As we know, investor activist Elliott Management took a big stake there. Mondelez, oops, I did it again. Mondelez up around 1.03% here this morning also. So again, a lot more laggards than we have winners. We talked about CarMax already. Transocean is a big one down this morning, down on a large, that's rig for those that don't know. Rig down about 15.93% this morning. Again, they have an upside equity offering at $3.05 for $381 million to pay down debt. This dilution overhang near term, is definitely hurting them. And watch these offshore day rates versus balance sheet moving forward is definitely going to be something to keep an eye on. Policy and commodities have crossed paths again. And what we mean there is we know that Lithium Americas LAC, which I thought was the LA Clippers, up, yesterday 95.77%, up another 14.48% this morning, although well off of the highs at 850 it saw earlier. And again, this is on the report the U.S. might take up to a 10% equity, part of a broader strategy from the Intel precedent to secure critical mineral supplies. Watch for the ripple effects, in my opinion, to ALB, Albemarle. We talked about that one that was down earlier this week, and you can see has had some rough action lately. Could be a beneficiary from this. SGML is another one. Sigma Lithium, and then SQM is another one you can look at here. All tickers that are heavy into the lithium area. One that I thought was interesting, want to run by everybody here. Did you see Honda, basically coming out and saying demand here in the US for EVs is not where they expected it to be. They are no longer going to produce their Acura ZDX here in the US. It was being built in a GM partnership in Spring Hill, Tennessee. Another marker of OEMs recalibrating EV ramps due to actual demand. So it's great to want to build them. It's great for for our regulators and elected officials to talk about, how that's the movement. But if people don't actually go to the stores or to the lots and buy the EVs, then, there you'll see these pivots. So we are 8 minutes from the open so far. Did want to point out we are seeing risk off across the globe a little bit here. The Nikkei is down about 0.5 percentage point. Chinese Hang Seng down about 13 basis points. And the Stoxx 600 in Europe down about 63 basis points here. So equities are under pressure across the globe so far. Did mention crypto a little bit here, and as I said, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of them are moving to the downside. Bitcoin now bouncing back nicely from a low at 110,873. Nice bounce back above 111,580. But again, that would just be a secondary move off of a primary downward trend, as you can see on the hourly chart here, firmly directed to the downside so far. Ethereum has regained 4,000, but again, broke that key support it had at 40.50 over the last couple of months. And Solana broke below 200 after hitting 250 just a few weeks or maybe even 10 days ago. Not even 10 days ago. So we are definitely seeing blood in the streets across crypto here. Getting hit harder, liquidations across the perpetual futures. Pretty big so far. We are 7 minutes from the open here. Mag 7, like I said, NVIDIA pulling back here, scheduled to open right around 174.36. We did see Barclays gave them a price target upgrade to 240 here. So if you are a fan of NVIDIA and what Barclays has to say, not a bad little time to get in there. Apple nicely holding up pretty well in the Mag 7, probably the best so far at 252.31. Again, we know iPhone sales so far look to be extremely good. And then you add in this possible deal with Intel, Apple definitely in the news. Although I would point out that some of these talks of investment, like we saw with NVIDIA and OpenAI recently, has actually been a negative draw on the person providing the financing. It's helped the one that is getting the financing, but has hurt the one doing the financing. Microsoft down about a 0.25 percentage point here again. And now below its 50-day MA starts to get interesting to me in this $500 area personally. I do think it get 10% off of its all-time high. For Microsoft, for me, would be a solid spot to start to take a look at it there. Google down 1.67 here. We know Google has been a high flyer of recent since their antitrust suit with EU got settled. Amazon, which has had a really rough go of it over the last several days, is again fairly neutral today and at an important spot here. If it doesn't hold this 219, you've got downward, downside all the way down to about 215 here again. So, and that's where for me it would start to get interesting probably also. Meta at 754.32, again, right about at its 50-day MA. Tesla, which has been a high flyer and hit, some pretty good 444 yesterday. You can see it's pulled back a little bit also. And Netflix at 12.03, down about a 0.25 percentage point so far. Trying to take a look here to see Carvana down about 4.62. This would be in sympathy play to CarMax here. So that's an interesting one. And again, I think you get down towards your 50-day MA there. I start to get interested in that 358 area. So we do got a lot of things shaping up that could give us some opportunities here today. We'll see what we get at the cash open. Sorry, just pulling up some data here. Tick is still negative 260. We are still sliding. Q's took a little bounce, but I don't like the way it's still looking. Still definitely looks like you have more downside pressure in front of you here. Oof. I'll post this into the banners. But the third time in a month and ninth time this year that they have reported something like that. Just trying to see. So this too, this is a pretty big news, although not news that we can play against, but Grok AI has been cleared for use across U.S. government agencies. So also did see that U.S. did GDP did get revised. Quarter two GDP growth upward to 3.8. Dutch central bank saying that the volume of world trade rose 1.3% in July. That would be a positive takeaway. Wow, seeing now that Bosch plans to cut 13,000 jobs by the end of 2030. We are open here. What are we going to get on the open? Dow Jones down about 26 basis points here, right at that 46,000 level again. So again, hadn't broken that level for the first time until last week, but had spent the last week above it. This is a pretty decent pullback from that 46,700 so far. Tick still negative 500, advanced decline down 3,600, 3,700, moving to the downside. So yesterday's lows were about 28.64 to the downside. And oof, sell off on the Qs, sell off on crypto here. Bitcoin back at 111,500. Ethereum back below 4,000 here. So again, as I said, so far, blood in the streets. QQs, Q down 83 basis points. The SPY is down 57 basis points, and the Dow Jones down 24 basis points. None of them really jumping up yet. We also see the Russell 2000 small cap down at 96 basis points, so getting hit harder than the other. Got to say, this is what Big Beat's been talking about, right, over the last several weeks, was to, that we were overbought across the market. So does look like, at least so far this morning, that is still the case. And again, after hitting the NASDAQ or the Qs hitting a high of 602, and pull back to 591 here. Gold remaining strong, bouncing buck up at the cash open basically to 37.41. IBM up 1.75%. Intel up 1.15%. Not a lot to look at here on the upside so far. On the downside, CarMax down 20.61%, Ford down 8.98%, SBET, SharpLink, the Ethereum treasury company, down about 8% here. Crypto mining company Cypher down 7.36%. Everything I says seem to have the word crypto in it. Crypto treasury company Strive down 7.06%. Applied Digital, not crypto, but chips, down 6.35% here. TerraWolf down 5.88%. Figure down 5.87%. So a lot more to the downside. Some of the AI names getting hit here. Sound AI. Credo down 5.4% so far today. Is bouncing back a little bit so far. We'll say also Fly, which was the big loser yesterday, gap back down again today, so down another 4.86. Same thing, the metal company, which had a rough day yesterday, down another, excuse me, another 3 or 4% here this morning, 4%. SoFi down about 3.66%. Micron down another 3.53%. So Micron down at 155.71 here now. Tick is still negative. Qs are at or right around lows of the day. Same with the SPY. Bitcoin is continuing to bounce a little bit. Ethereum not as well. VIX at 1722. Oh, as I'm drinking my coffee, we didn't talk about Starbucks, SBUX. Now up about 4 basis points here, was down in the pre-market trading. They are doing about $1 billion restructure. They're going to close a bunch of their stores that were lower producing, and their CEO said they're going to put a bigger emphasis on the stores themselves and spend money around those stores. So good to see. Tick still negative 400 here. You can see has not gone positive since the cash open at all. Russell now down 1.2. So if you felt like you missed out on some of those small caps that have been moving, this is maybe the chance to dip over the next day or two. Do have PCE tomorrow. Got a lot of Fed talk coming out too. Do see that there is a little bit here. Fed Schmid, there were a lot of nuances balancing the dual mandate. Oof. And again, why are we seeing this across the globe? China, France, US, Germany, UK, and Japan record largest increases in debt levels in USD terms, says the IIF. So again, we are seeing more and more debt being financed, which is definitely weighing on the system so far. And again, going with what Mr. Flanagan's been saying, if you look overseas, there is not much positive there either. Q's down now 1.04%. Again, we're continuing to move to the downside. Meta, I'm hearing, just lost the 50-day MA there. Woof, down 1.6. Yeah. So Meta now down below 750 here, coming down to where it's got to start to get interesting, right? Tesla down 3.42% here today. Nvidia down 1.85. Apple is the only thing holding on. Rates pushing back up a little bit here. Alibaba down 3% here today. Had been a high flyer of recent. Same thing, Constellation Energy, which has had a nice move to the upside, pulling back here, down about 2.55% today. Coinbase, like I said, most of the crypto names under pressure here, back down at 307 here. I do think that gets very interesting in that 300 level personally. Costco goes into earnings this evening. It's going to be all about their subscription numbers and sales, but down, well, pretty flat on the day. We'll see what we get here. But Costco has not had a great performance over the last few months here. You can see since hitting highs back in June and highs in February, it's taken a pretty big fall from those levels. Carvana coming back down towards lows of the day. Again, they didn't have bad earnings. It was CarMax, but taking it with it. We do see Delta Airlines, also DAL, down about 2%. So blood in the streets today. I do see the part of the market that isn't going down is in the room right now. We're going to bring in Peter Thomas from AU Secure, the man, the myth, the legend when it comes to everything metals. How are you doing today, Peter?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing well, better than the markets, man. We're getting a little blood on the street this morning.
Well, it's I think it's a little overdue, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, Big Beat's been calling for it for weeks, to a month. You can't argue. Numbers aren't great, even though jobless numbers came in pretty good today. It's still off of pretty bad employment numbers.
Yeah. Well, but copper is always my personal indicator, as you know, Howard, because of all its uses in industrial and commercial usage. It tells me as a metals trader where the market is. And it has been languishing for a while. We bought that enormous break, so we're in comfortably, but it hasn't performed the way I wanted it to. Now, we had a 4% jump, which recovered a lot of our loss just within the last few days, but we still haven't seen it mobile, if you will. So I agree with you. The market has been telling me that nothing's going on really.
Right. Yeah. Are we seeing more movement by government central banks into metals? Have you seen any of those big moves like you were seeing earlier in the year?
Well, that has not changed. All right. That has been a very consistent purchase. There's been no real letdown. I mean, China came out and they said, "Oh, we're not going to buy any more gold. We're not going to buy any more gold." And then my friends are telling me, "Oh, they're doing it through the back door in Hong Kong." Right. So,
don't listen to what I say. Look at what I do.
Right. And nothing's changed at all. Poland came in and bought 4 tons just out of the blue. So, we're still seeing the new players staying very, very active. Azerbaijan came in. A lot of the stands are coming in, and that has not slowed down, although it isn't like news. But to me, when somebody comes in and buys a ton of metal, that's big to me, Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, this dip today might be a decent little buying opportunity. I see we got some support here just above 3,700. If it comes back to that level, You think it's a good spot for our viewers to take a look at it, or do you think
Well,
further?
I will tell you that if I am of the mind now that if we comfortably hold 3,400, Howard, that we might be looking to start a whole new tier. It could very possibly be. I mean, we have the bigger research centers at Goldman, at JP, all saying 4,000 is close, and some of the more respected people are telling me right now $5,000 is right around the corner. So, do I know? Of course not. You know, I would be on my island with a paw, an umbrella and the drink if I knew for sure. You know, but it certainly looks strong.
Yeah, that is the case. And, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, I know you brought up to me recently, is the US dollar and what you're seeing out of China. And that could play into what they're doing behind closed channels, so to speak, right? What are you hearing there?
I think, well, the thing is that the nice thing about Quasar Markets is that you guys cover a diversity of markets. And I know your viewers are far more sophisticated. And if you look at it from this viewpoint, when you buy gold, the value of the gold you're buying is dictated by the underlying fiat currency you use. And to make sense of that is if I'm paying with pounds or I'm paying with yuan, they have a almost a discounted value at certain times over the day, over the week, over the month or year. So subsequently, I am seeing China buying with dollars because dollars are getting them a higher yield as far as a percentage of gold they can buy.
Oh, so they're doing the opposite of the carry trade. They're going the other way. They're taking.
Well, it's interesting because if I've got a T-bill and I can put it into gold and I'm getting 1.5%, 2% better on the spread, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And people such as myself that have arbitraged over their lifetime of trading, 1 or 2% is a awfully good living. And so if I could take money out of reserves with their currency being tremendously weak and use dollars to buy, I'm going to buy gold. And so far, they started that at 1,700, Howard. So they're doing pretty good.
Right. And you would say, and you can see the double whammy it has, because our dollar, the DXY, has been under pressure.
Yes.
It does seem to be subsiding over the last 3 days. Mr. Flanagan, our forex expert, as you know, he is saying the King dollar is returning, and it does look like it's starting to.
Well, I wouldn't argue with him. Flint's a good man, a good trader, but I tend to believe that we're going to see some basing in here shortly because I think the economic numbers are going to get better.
So the concern, and I guess where he comes off, is that if you look around the globe, where else you put in money? Now, gold being the answer, for sure. Without a doubt, metals has been that answer. Commodities, but what you're seeing is French markets, their financial watchdog is calling that with they're using the R word over there pretty loosely.
Yes.
An anemic growth at best has been part of it. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I didn't realize that double whammy, which makes a lot of sense, is when the dollar's losing value, get something that's gaining value in gold for it. And it's sort of a double win on your books, right? On your balance sheet.
Absolutely right. And, the dollar has lost so much. I mean, what's funny is the public doesn't realize how much, and we should try to inform our viewers as best we can that.
That's why we have this Flanagan on. It's had the worst first 6 months in like 45 years.
Yes. And no news on it. I don't hear anybody talking about it.
No, you really don't. You have not heard anything about it, which is funny. And I think part of it is there's still a lot of folks that don't understand it also,
I'll tell you what, I'm in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, I have a pretty good following, Cairo, around the world. My Middle East people are telling me, hey, I lost 40% of my dollar and picked up 45% on my gold, following your advice. And, and they're just absolutely ecstatic that gold did what it is supposed to do, which gave them a safe harbor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, it doesn't seem to be slowing down. We've been talking about, the other thing I'd point out is you were mentioning copper and the use case that we have in the western part of the United States, especially Malibu. But it's even more so is these, if they're really going to build $100 billion or whatever it is in data centers, there's a lot of copper that's going to be in those buildings, right?
Miles and miles and miles. And also just, I coined a new phrase here, which is pretty hard to do in one of the oldest markets in the world. But I am calling gold now a technical metal, because it is no longer just used as a source of parking for a safe harbor, but it is used in all the chips. And if we're going to be manufacturing chips here in America at a breakneck pace, and the AI cooling towers all have gold in them, and not small amounts. So I'm now of a mind that we are seeing gold getting snapped up for technical consumption as far as building goes, and we haven't seen these kind of numbers ever before, because this is brand new territory, Howard.
Right. And then when you have the U.S. getting involved in lithium, how long till they get back heavy into the metals business? And that, as the other thing we were talking about yesterday with Mr. Flanagan was, when are we going to count Fort Knox and start to look at the profit on that gold?
Well, I would hate to see him, sell into this rally. I would like to see, rather than a sale, to go to your point, Howard, I would like to see a reevaluation.
Yeah. We just want to know what they hold, and then, can we use it as collateral for something like everybody else does?
Well, I volunteered a year ago to start a team to start doing the smelting and reassay and certification of the bars, but I never got a response, which is typical, So.
Yeah, absolutely. What else is on your radar here? Anything else?
I'll tell you what's on my radar right now. I had two things, yesterday, I don't know if you got a chance. Did you see me at the Money and Mining show? And
I did.
Thank you. I appreciate you dropping in. That was a pretty big show. And as you know, I had a lot of audience participation, a lot of viewers. Metals market is active, and a lot of talk about China right now, and the fact that we're seeing the yuan just crater. And I always like to say, Howard, capitalism really looks easy until you try to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're having their troubles, and that's the other thing is, we can't get any reliable data out of China, as we know. But what you hear on the undercurrents, again, at least from my side on crypto and technology, is again, people are pulling back there also. That it isn't, housing's an issue over there.
Housing is a gigantic issue there. I mean,
issues over there.
5 cities the size of Manhattan, each one, and they're empty. Yeah. And then they built a rail system to go into them, and it goes to an empty city and comes back. Their airlines, their 3 major airlines, are losing $45 million a day. That's pushing $45 million in the middle of a table, setting it on fire, roasting a couple of marshmallows, and coming back the next day. Their military is now larger than the United States, and they are feeding, housing, and paying all of those people to stand around. So they are burning through money at an extraordinary pace. And the question is, why are they buying gold? I think it's pretty apparent when you lift the covers up,
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's what we're saying too. Yeah, they need to have that underlying asset because they're the one thing that they have that we don't have here obviously is communism. So when they want to change the spending habits of their and especially they with their digital yuan, they have the ability to stimulus the economy by saying that hey, guess what? Those digital yuan you're holding in your digital wallet, they're going to expire in 30 days if you don't spend them.
Yeah. Well,
Different.
I mean, if you, as a sidebar, the yuan, when they announced it, and people didn't understand that it is a political tool, and you can say, "Hey, you didn't make this meeting, and this meeting we discussed such and such of communism, or we read the Mao book, so we're going to devalue the yuan that you're spending and dial it back." It's a very frightening tool to control people's lives, and that is another reason in my mind why we're seeing so much gold coming out of Hong Kong going to the consumers. And for the first time in history, China has allowed their insurance companies to buy and purchase and hold gold. That's a big number. So we're seeing a lot of consumption for a myriad of reasons, Howard.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Thomas, I don't want to monopolize too much of your time.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad I could drop in and continue the good work, Howard. I love your shows.
Appreciate it, Mr. Thomas. We will see you maybe in the next couple of weeks here to come back and see what's going on for Quasar Markets. That's going to do for us this morning. I'll be back tomorrow with Scott Bauer from Prosper Trading and Steve Flanagan, our forex expert. So big day tomorrow, everybody. Market's still moving down. Q's now down 1.14, just off the lows of the day. Dow Jones down back below 46,000 here, and the SPY is at 82 to the negative side. Everybody, be careful out there, and we'll see you in the morning.